So the Human Settlements Department is today hosting the Presidential Summit of Innovative Building Technologies. It's a gathering that's expected to last over 2 days at the Nasrec Expo Center in Johannesburg. This event aims to advance and showcase innovative, sustainable, climate resilience and scalable construction solutions that support dignified housing and eradication of informal settlements around the country. Watching the story is SABC News reporter Nosipho, who's live to us now from Nasrec in Johannesburg. And Nosipho, we have spent decades in this country reporting about just how long the housing backlog in the country is. I imagine it's issues like that are likely to be ventilated where you're at.
Certainly, Ayanda, very good morning to you and to the viewers at home. We did hear, of course, from the Minister earlier this morning, just outlining some of those issues, pointing out how we do, of course, have a housing backlog in South Africa and how many families have waited years just for some affordable and safe housing. And, of course, looking then at low-income earners, middle-class households, and how we can then alleviate the burden when it comes to safe and affordable housing in that segment. But we'll also look at rural housing as well, because of course, as you point out, climate change is an issue, and of course having then safe and affordable housing is something that will be top of the priorities for the experts that are gathered here today. But I'm going to turn to my guest, the Deputy Minister of COGTA, Dixon Masemola, just for some insight on this. A very good morning to you, Deputy Minister. Thank you for your time. I guess as COGTA, maybe let's get your perspective around the importance of this Innovative Building Technology Summit.
Well, we are here to participate in this important summit convened by Human Settlement Department and the Minister in particular, precisely to come and be looking at alternative technologies and ways and means through which we could be able to provide better housing infrastructure, mindful of the fact that climate change and as well as inclement weather that comes with very destructive realities. And therefore, this meeting is very important in our view because it's a confluence of South African minds from all walks of life to come and have a national conversation on how best we could package alternative housing delivery mechanisms that will basically make it possible to give climate resilient infrastructure both in urban areas and as well as many parts of the country in our rural provinces. So it's a very important meeting of minds of all South Africans, probably as well also from many professionals, engineering, architectural, skills that will be, sharing perspectives on how best working together with the human settlement as local government we could be able going forward to provide those better infrastructure for housing, because South Africans are basically, experiencing serious problems in many parts of the country as a result of the contemporary environmental realities that have been brought about by climate change. But not only that alone, but also the need to basically find better ways to house them, because urbanization in many parts of the country has really become an unavoidable phenomenon, which is a global matter. And to the extent that people are going closer to urban centers, unavoidably, it has resulted in the housing needs. In as much as in rural areas, equally important, people who are struggling financially, economically, they as well deserve to be housed much better. And this meeting, in our view, and that is the reason why we are participating as the Department of Local Government together with Housing, so that we can have integrated approaches from funding, from planning, and as well as from implementation, so that together we can be in a better position to influence the policy options on how South Africa as a government could well handle this issue of housing South Africans.
And as you point out, Deputy Minister, of course, there's this push then for many people to move to urban areas. But of course, you've pointed out that you're not leaving out then rural areas. Can you just give us sort of an indication of how you plan to overcome some of the challenges that are presented when it comes to rural housing?
Well, I think to the extent that we have been able to pass a policy through human settlement on provision of housing infrastructure in rural villages. We having what we call a urban development program. Okay, firstly, there is what we call integrated urban development framework as a policy response to many problems that are basically experienced in urban areas, to the extent of democratizing spatial governance and be able to deal with all those realities around spatial planning. But in particular with regard to rural areas, we are having serious discussions together with our municipalities and as well as district municipalities with regard to the extent to which we can be able to roll out a massive infrastructure development. And of course, I think you are quite aware that His Excellency President Ramaphosa in the past few months has been able to articulate a massive infrastructure rollout program, which he says we're going to be spending almost R1 trillion in the next coming 3 years. And that money has been allocated to various departments, including even our department as COCTA. And for us to be able to provide housing to our people in villages, in peri-urban areas, including urban areas, we are going to be actually utilizing those resources for infrastructure provision in terms of basic services, layout of infrastructure in areas where municipalities would have been able to identify them as places for human settlements, and therefore provision of basic infrastructure becomes a necessity so that top-up structures can be easily be constructed by human settlement. So the integrated approach and management within the context of collaborative leadership between ourselves and as well as human settlement. Resources, to the extent that His Excellency has announced that, for me, it does not necessarily become a major constraint. I think the biggest issue, which is a threat on our side, which is what we're dealing with, it's spatial planning, so that working together with our traditional leaders in those villages, in those peri-urban areas, we can be in a better position to have a better alternative means with regard to land administration, land access, so that better planning can be actually done, so that we don't see people being settled in flatline areas where when these floods, when they come, it becomes very pathetic because people get subjected to difficult conditions as a result in many instances of them having been settled in wrong places. Now, if you were to put massive housing infrastructure in a flatland area, you can see you'll just be subjecting people to unavoidable difficulties. So this process that we're here for today of this important summit, it will be to look at all those alternative models so that where we're supposed to settle people in villages, in rural areas, together with traditional leaders and municipalities, we must survey those places and see that they are suitable for settlement, in as much as in urban areas equally important. The metros, the town councils, they would also have to make it possible that where they identify land, those places are suitable for human settlements, and therefore planning and design becomes very paramount. And this summit for us, it's a very important meeting of minds. Like I said, a confluence of engagements going forward to develop those mechanisms and alternative models of providing housing infrastructure.
All right, thank you so much, Deputy Minister. That was the Deputy Minister then of COCTA, Dixon Masimula, just outlining then the importance of the summit for COCTA as a department, and also just one of the issues that they plan to deal with, that of spatial planning and how it affects then housing in South Africa. But for now, Ayanda, it's back to you in studio.
Nosipho, Radebe, live to us from Nasrec in Johannesburg. Thanks very much indeed.